Welcome to the eNETEmployer How-To video series. In today's lesson, we will discuss the various special pay types that are provided in eNETEmployer. While most payroll users will be familiar with the normal pay type, that's the regular method where all active employees are paid based on your company's normal payroll schedule, special pay types allow you to perform pay runs that are over and above the regular pay cycle. For example, if you've processed and closed your normal pay cycle, and then subsequently wish to process a bonus pay run for an employee, you could run a special pay type entitled Additional. Or perhaps you've just closed your normal pay cycle and realize that you've paid an employee the incorrect amount. In this case, you could run a reversal pay type to reverse the employee's previous run and to correct their year-to-date balances. In order to include one or more employees in a special pay run, you must set each person's status to Special. We will discuss that requirement when we get to that portion of the lesson. Over and above the normal pay type, eNETEmployer allows you to process the following special pay types. Additional pays are used to calculate a run where the pay values need to be combined with other runs in the same period. Extra pay types are used to calculate a pay run that does not include values from the previous normal pay run. Reversal special pay types are used to cancel the effects of a previous pay run for one or more specific employees. And reversal all pay types are used to cancel the effects of a previous pay run for all employees in the previous run. So if you're ready to learn more about each of these special pay types, let's get started. Let's begin by logging into the eNETEmployer program and choosing the payroll service. When eNETEmployer appears, ensure that you're on the Payroll tab, and then navigate to the Calculation screen by choosing the Payroll Processing Calculations menu command. As you can see, our demo payroll is currently at pay period 25 for the year, as shown in the period cell. And since the period ended on December 5th, as shown in the end date cell, the next normal pay period should begin on December 6th. The pay date for the period, commonly referred to as the check date, was on December the 11th. As we work with our pay periods, it's important to verify the start, end, and pay dates in order to ensure the correct schedules for each sequence. Fortunately, eNETEmployer provides you with an automated method to assist you in verifying these dates. We'll discuss that in just a moment. The status column shows the word closed because the payroll for this period has been finalized and is no longer applicable for data entry or adjustments. eNETEmployer detects that the most recent payroll is closed, so it displays a helpful message above the table, explaining how we can begin a new pay sequence. Let's follow these directions and select the New button. This will add a new pay sequence into the table, and when we do so, the new row appears in edit mode with its cells ready for editing. The status column displays the word New to indicate that it's a brand new pay sequence. This cell will change to read Calculated after we calculate the payroll, and eventually it will read Closed once we have finalized the process. The sequence cell reads 26 and is incremented by 1 based on the previous pay sequence, which was 25. The payroll sequence number is sequentially assigned and increments for every pay calculation regardless of the pay type. For example, if your payroll is set to semi-monthly and you calculated only normal pay types throughout the year, that is, no other special pay types, then the final sequence at year end would be 24, and the first new sequence of the following year would continue at 25, and so on. Each time you run a special pay type, such as an additional, extra, or reversal pay, the sequence number cell will increment accordingly. Moving forward, we come to the pay type cell. If we were working with a regular payroll cycle, we would leave it with the default normal option. However, our demo lesson will involve a number of other pay types in the list. If you would prefer to learn all of the details about normal pay runs before proceeding with this lesson on special pay types, please pause the video now and view our other how-to lesson entitled Calculating a Payroll. For this demo lesson, we will demonstrate how to run an additional, extra, and reversal special pay. If you want to view a detailed explanation for each of these special pay types, just press the F1 key on your keyboard and you can view the online help. The online help system describes each column and page in detail, and all descriptions are provided in alphabetical order to make it easier to locate the item for which we are looking. For the first part of our lesson, we will be adding an additional pay run to correct an error where we forgot to pay one employee, Gregory House, for some overtime hours that he worked during the last pay period. Let's begin by choosing the additional option from the pay type drop-down list. As mentioned earlier, additional pay runs are used to calculate a pay run for employees where the pay values need to be combined with other pay runs in the same period in order to calculate taxes correctly for any employees who are included in the run. During this pay calculation, eNETEmployer will take into account statutory deductions for the period. For example, if an employee reached the EI maximum contributions on the previous pay run, no additional EI would be deducted from their additional pay run. One example where you might wish to perform an additional pay run would be if an employee's overtime was mistakenly excluded on the normal pay run. You could correct this by running an additional pay in order to reimburse the employee. Another example would be if you wish to provide a bonus payment to one or more employees over and above the regular pay. Moving forward, we come to the start date, end date, and pay date cells. As mentioned earlier, these dates need to be set accordingly based on the previous period's dates. As you can see, eNETEmployer has automatically assigned the new start and end dates to correspond to a normal pay run, in this case starting December the 6th, based on the previous pay period's end date of December 5th. eNETEmployer's automatic incrementing of these dates is very useful and saves you the time of having to calculate the dates manually. However, since this new pay sequence is actually an additional run based on the previous pay sequence, we will need to adjust these three dates accordingly to match the last closed pay run. So we will move to the start date cell and change the date to November 22nd. This will match the previous normal run, and then we will move to the end date cell and change that date to match the end date of the same run, December the 5th. And finally, we will move to the pay date cell, also known as the check date, and set the date to the actual day in which we will be distributing the check. We will enter December the 11th, the same day that we discovered the payment error. Note, because we have manually set each of these three dates to correspond to this special pay run, we must remember to set these dates back to the regular 2-week schedule when we add our next normal pay sequence at a later time. Because this is a special pay type, we will move to the description cell and add a note that will serve as a record for this special pay run. We'll enter added pay to correct missed overtime. When the settings are complete, scroll to the left and save the row. Now we need to define the overtime payment information for the employee. To do so, we will choose the Payroll Processing Speedy Update command. This screen provides a quick method of entering the hours that your employees have worked for the pay period. Double-click on the row for Gregory House, and then move to his overtime hours cell and enter the number 10. When you're finished, scroll to the left and save the changes to the row. This updates the total hours cell and shows that he will receive a total of $300 in overtime pay. You may also notice that the total amount column displays the recurring pay amounts for the two salary-based employees. eNETEmployer does this automatically so that you do not have to enter salary amounts each period. But since these other two employees will not have their status set to special, they will not be included in this additional pay calculation. Now that we have set the pay type and entered the extra overtime work hours for Gregory, it's time to set his status to special so that he will be included in the additional pay run. As mentioned earlier, eNETEmployer will only process special pay types for employees whose status is explicitly set to special. To do this, we will choose the Employee Status Parameters menu command. When the Status Parameters page appears, notice how the status column shows that each employee is currently set to active. This is the default setting and indicates that all employees are actively engaged in work with the company and will be included in all normal pay calculations. For our lesson, we need to change the status for the single employee who is to be included in the additional pay run. In this case, it's Gregory House. So let's double-click on Gregory's row, move to his status cell, and change the option to Special. And then we'll save the row. Gregory will now be included in any subsequent special pay run, whether it be an additional, extra, or reversal. Note, the employee status setting will remain in force until you manually reset it back to the active state. Therefore, once our special pay run is calculated and closed, we must remember to return to this screen and reset it accordingly. Leaving their status set to special will not prevent the employee from being paid on a subsequent normal pay run. However, the employee could be mistakenly included in a future special pay run that is created for some other employee. Now that we've set the employee status, we must return to the calculations page so that we can process the additional pay run. To do so, we'll choose the Payroll Processing Calculations menu command once again. And when the calculation screen appears, we will select the Calculate button from the button bar. Once the calculations are complete, a message appears above the table stating that the pay has been calculated successfully. Please check the report and save a backup before closing the pay. Notice also that the status column now indicates that the payroll has been calculated. If we refer back to the message at the top of the table, it suggests that we check the report to verify our payroll results. In this case, it's referring to the interim payroll register report. And if we look to the right, we will see that the Generate Report button is now active for the current pay periods row. Let's select the button to create the interim payroll register report. This will allow us to review our payroll results. As we review the report, we can see that only one employee has been paid. Let's zoom in a little bit. Gregory House. A current value of $300 is shown. Now that our payroll results are verified, let's close the report and return to the payroll. Referring back to the earlier message, eNETEmployer also states that we must save a backup before closing the pay. This is a requirement before closing any payroll in the program. In fact, if we attempt to choose the Close button before a backup has been created, eNETEmployer will display an error message warning us to do so before proceeding. To initiate the backup process, simply choose the Backup button from the button bar. Depending on your browser settings, the resulting backup file will either be stored in your Downloads folder, or you may be presented with a dialog box that will prompt you where to save the file. We're using the Google Chrome browser, so we can simply choose the Show in Folder command. And we can see that the file has been stored safely in our Downloads folder for later use if needed. With the backup now complete, it's time to close the payroll. We can do so by choosing the Close button from the button bar. Upon choosing the button, the program displays one final message reminding us that closing the payroll will finalize the pay calculation and that we will no longer be able to make changes to this pay run. If this is acceptable, we can choose the Yes button to complete the close procedure. Once the close function is complete, eNETEmployer displays a note above the table stating that we can now insert a new pay sequence when we are ready to begin our next payroll. Notice also that the status column indicates that the payroll has been closed. The pay period remains at 25 because this additional pay needed to be combined with the previous pay run in order to correctly calculate the taxes for the employee who was included in the pay run. The pay sequence number, however, has incremented by 1 because this sequence is a distinct pay run on its own. The final step that remains is to set the employee's status back to active so that they will not be mistakenly included in any other special pay run. To do this, we will once again choose the Employee Status Parameters menu command, and when the Status Parameters page appears, we can double-click on the row for Gregory and set his status back to active, and then save the row. As mentioned earlier, leaving his status set to special will not prevent him from being paid on subsequent normal pay runs. However, he could be mistakenly included in a subsequent special pay run if we neglected to set his status back to active. This completes the section of this lesson on adding an additional pay run. To summarize, we performed the following steps. We defined the additional pay type and set the start, end, and pay dates to match the previous period's dates. We entered the employee's work hours for the special pay run. We set the employee's status to special so that they would be included in the additional pay run. We processed the additional pay run, verified the results, and then backed up and closed the payroll. And finally, we reset the employee status back to active so that they would not be mistakenly included in any subsequent special pay run. We'll now continue with the lesson and discuss the steps involved in adding an extra pay type. For the next part of our lesson, we will add an extra pay run in order to pay an employee who is being terminated but who has already worked some hours into our next normal pay calculation. Since we're already on the status parameters page, let's begin by editing the status for the departing employee, Josephine Webster. We can double-click on the row for Josephine and then change her status to special, and then save the changes. This signifies that she will now be included in the subsequent special pay run. Now that we've set the employee status, we need to enter the hours that she has worked for her final paycheck. To do so, we will once again choose the Payroll Processing Speedy Update command. When the page appears, double-click on the row for Josephine Webster and then move to the regular hours cell and enter 20, and then save the row. Now that we've set the employee's special status and entered their work hours, we must move to the Calculations page so that we can add and process the extra pay sequence. Let's choose the Payroll Processing Calculations menu command once again. And when the page appears, we'll select the New button to insert a new pay sequence into the table. The new pay sequence increments to the number 27. Now we can move to the Pay Type cell and choose the Extra option from the drop-down list. We use this pay type to calculate pay runs that should not include any values from the previous normal run. That is, extra pay runs will have their taxes calculated as part of the next normal pay run. In our example, we're using an extra pay type because the departing employee has already worked a number of hours into our next normal pay calculation. During this pay calculation, eNETEmployer will apply the employee's statutory deductions to the next normal pay period. Since the employee is being terminated within the next normal pay cycle, we can use the automatic dates that the program has provided. A payroll start date of December the 6th and a payroll end date of December the 19th. Now we must set the pay date to the actual date that we would be producing the printed check for the departing employee. Let's say December 10th. Now we can save the row and then process the payroll by choosing the Calculate button. When the calculations are complete, we can again select the Generate Report button and view the Interim Payroll Register Report for the extra pay run. As we review the report, we can again see that only one employee has been paid, Josephine Webster, for an amount of $360. And with the pay sequence now complete, we can perform a payroll backup, and then we can close the payroll. The final step that remains is to set the employee's status to terminated so that she will not be mistakenly included in any subsequent pay runs. To do this, we will once again choose the Employee Status Parameters menu command, and then we'll edit the row for Josephine Webster and change her status to terminated. This completes the section of this lesson on adding an extra pay run. To summarize, we performed the following actions. We defined the extra pay type and left the start, end, and pay dates with the default dates for the next pay period. We entered the employee's work hours for the special pay run. We set the employee status to special so that they would be included in the extra pay run. We processed the pay run, verified the results, and then backed up and closed the payroll. And finally, we reset the employee status to terminated so that they would not be mistakenly included in any subsequent pay run. For the final portion of our lesson, we will process a reversal pay run to reverse the pay for a single employee who was mistakenly paid even though they did not actually work any hours. The process will be very similar to the previous two special pay types, except that the reversal pay will result in negative values, which will be shown in the pay register report, and the employee's year-to-date values will be adjusted to reflect the rolled back wages. Note, if you're considering running a reversal pay, you should be aware of the implications in terms of monies that may have already been distributed. For example, if your EFT has already been processed, then a pay reversal will result in a state where you will need to have wages returned to you after the fact. The same applies to CRA and other remittances that may have already been paid out. In many cases, it may be more practical to create an additional pay run that includes negative values so that you are left with accurate year-to-date values. So let's get back to our reversal pay run. As is the case with any special pay type, we must remember to set the employee status to special. So once again, using the status parameter screen, we will edit the row for our chosen employee, Isabel, and we will set her status to special. With her status now set, we will again choose the Payroll Processing Calculations menu command. Note that we've reset our demo payroll for this lesson so that it includes only normal pay runs. Our reversal pay run will apply to the most recent normal sequence, which was November 22nd through to December 5th. To set up the reversal pay run, we'll select the New button. This adds a new pay sequence into the table, so now we can move to the pay type cell and choose the Reversal Special option from the drop-down list. This pay type is used to cancel the effects of a previous pay run for only those employees whose status is set to special. In our example, we have paid employee Isabel in error, and now we need to cancel the issue check and correct her year-to-date balances. Next, we'll move to the Reversal Payroll cell and choose the pay run that is to be reversed. In this case, we will choose the most recent normal pay sequence. And finally, we'll move to the three pay date cells and change the start date, end date, and pay date to match the pay sequence that we are reversing. Now we can save the row and then process the payroll by choosing the Calculate button once again. When the calculations are complete, we will select the Generate Report button once again to view the Interim Payroll Register report. As we review the report, we can see that Isabel's hours worked and current pay amounts show negative values. Her statutory deduction amounts also show negative values, indicating that her year-to-date amounts correctly reflect the pay adjustment. With the payroll calculated and verified, we would complete the procedure by performing a payroll backup and closing the payroll as normal. And as with other special pay types, we would remember to return to the Employee Status Parameters page to set the employee status back to active. This completes the section of this lesson on adding a reversal pay run. The final pay type we will discuss is the Reversal All option. This pay type can be used to cancel the effects of a previous pay run for all of the employees in the sequence. Pay reversals can be necessary for a number of reasons. The pay may have been run in error, or perhaps all of the employees were overpaid or underpaid. In either case, you can use the Reversal All pay type to cancel the entire previous run, thus correcting each employee's year-to-date balances. As mentioned earlier, this option is viable if you have not yet distributed monies to your employees. It should also be noted that eNETEmployer provides two other options to assist in situations where you need to correct errors in a closed payroll, whether it be for a small or large number of employees. These two options are the Unclose feature and the Restore feature. The Unclose feature allows you to quickly reopen the most recently closed payroll so that you can make additional changes as needed. This can negate the need for you having to create an additional pay, an extra pay, or a reversal pay to correct an error. For more information on the Unclose feature, please view our how-to video entitled Unclosing a Payroll. The second option for making corrections to a closed payroll is the Restore feature. Depending on your situation, rather than simply unclosing a payroll as we just discussed, a payroll restore procedure can return your payroll to a specific point in time based on a previous backup file. A restore procedure will provide you with a fresh start and will completely reverse any changes made after the previous payroll was closed. For more information on the Restore feature, please view our how-to video entitled Restoring a Payroll Using a Backup. This completes the lesson on special pay types in eNETEmployer. We hope you found the lesson useful, and as always, if you need a detailed explanation for any program item or function, press F1 to access the online help system at any time. Thanks for watching, and please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more how-to videos.